I've only got one thing to say. My mom is awesome. Okay, I probably have a few other things that I want to say as well. But seriously, she's pretty much the best mom in the whole wide world, and certainly the best mom I've ever had. As hard as it may be to believe, when I was a kid, I had ADHD, which I think stands for Attention Deficit in High Definition. But don't worry, it's not contagious. My elementary school teachers had no clue how to deal with me. Basically, what they would do is every time I talked out of turn, giving the correct answer without raising my hand, they would take 5 minutes off recess. So you'd have my name on the chalkboard and they would like add a 5 and then add a 10. And it got to the point where they ran out of time. There were only so many 5-minute increments you could take off recess. So essentially they started taking minutes off of lunch.
You're telling me you're making our 7-year-old hyperactive son sit at a desk and write a 3-page essay during the only period of the school day that he can burn off some energy?
We have to take away recess to punish them. That's the only time of day they're happy.
I think we're gonna homeschool.
Dealing with kids, I imagine, is probably pretty difficult, and I can't necessarily speak to that because I don't have any kids, and I don't plan on it for some time. I mean, I don't know how I could deal with that responsibility and put videos out every week. Priorities here. And it's gotta be especially difficult with a kid who was, you know, like me. Hi. But you know, there are certain cliche lines that I've heard parents say over and over that I am so glad that my mom never used on me. And so, here are 5 of them. Number 1.
If you keep making that face, it'll freeze that way.
Which face? This face? I did it. I did it. At what point in a little kid's life do you tell them, hey, don't make funny faces? Especially with some sort of passive-aggressive lie. That doesn't make any sense. I guess that's the same type of parenting technique that tells kids to behave because Santa's watching. And that brings me to what I love about my mom. She would make the funny faces with me because my mom taught me to find humor in life. For example, one time I had to go to the doctor to get a shot.
Okie dokie, kiddo. You should be out of here in no time fat. I mean flat.
Are you sure?
Sure thing. They call me Speedy. Let me just stick this thing in your arm. Almost done. We're getting there. Just a little longer. Sit still.
So the whole way home, my mom and I laughed and joked around back and forth. They call me Speedy. And we still quote that to this very day. In fact, I just quoted it in this video. Number 2.
Why can't you be more like...
Insert somebody's name here. I'm so glad my mom never expected me to fit into some sort of mold. In fact, when she realized I wasn't learning in the traditional schooling sense, she quit her job, pulled me out of school, and started homeschooling me. That's exactly what I needed, that one-on-one attention, without somebody telling me I was stupid because I wasn't as good as the other kids at memorization. I love that if something was funny in one of our lessons, my mom wouldn't hesitate to stop so we could joke about it. Like Romulus and Remus being raised by she-wolves, or Uranus being a gas giant. That's funny. A bit juvenile? Yes, but I'll never forget them. Through this, my mom didn't just force me to memorize sections from a book, but she taught me how to learn in the way that I learned best. And that's something I carried with me into college and to this very day. Number 3.
Children are to be seen and not heard.
What? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, we were supposed to behave whenever the adults were talking. We weren't supposed to interrupt and be rude, but there was never a time where my mom made me feel like I wasn't allowed to discuss things with her. That's where I picked up a lot of the techniques I still use when brainstorming with other creative people. See, my mom's phrase was, children are to be heard and not seen, which was difficult, but that's why I got into radio. Number 4.
Act your age.
My mom somehow found a way to never treat me like I was a child, but always allow me as a kid to be a kid. I think this is because she never saw my hyperness as immaturity. It was just developing creativity. She always encouraged me to use my creative mind in the appropriate settings, but she also always talked to me like I was on her level. So does this mean that my mom was a free thinker and was so afraid to squelch my personality that she never disciplined me?
Kevin, I'm gonna give you to the count of 3 to stop drinking the dish soap. 1, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4, 2 7/17.
No way. My mom never once counted, not once. There was no counting in my house. I actually never learned how to count, and that's why I've never had Count Chocula cereal. I'm just saying that my mom was always very logical, and she knew that what worked for other kids, and even my sisters, wasn't always the best thing for me.
If you don't stop drinking that, I'm gonna wash your mouth out with soap.
Yay! Number 5.
So if everyone else in the world jumped off a bridge, would you do that too?
How do you expect to teach your kids to think for themselves if you can't even come up with an original line? Well, if everyone else in the world jumped off the bridge, then I imagine they would pile up so high that when I jumped off it, it wouldn't even hurt. So yes, I think I would. Of course, my mom would always turn it into some sort of learning exercise, and I always loved it. So Mom, thank you so much for not resting the upbringing of your son on stupid mom cliches, but instead, you took a vested interest in my life and my particular learning style. Thank you for encouraging and believing in me, for showing me grace, love, and understanding. Thank you for preparing me for the real world and for doing your part to make me the man I am today, a guy making YouTube videos in his studio apartment. Love you, Mom!